All right, welcome everyone. This video has been a little bit of a long time coming. This is my analysis of the House Harkonnen deck. So we have already covered House Atreides, the Fremen, and the Carino deck. But the Harkonnen deck is a little bit more unique than the other decks, I think. So I want to talk about part of what makes the Harkonnen deck good or not. It depends on the style of game you think you might play, and it also depends on how you roll your Mentat dice. And let me tell you what I'm thinking about when I say that. So let's say you have your dice roll and you have, maybe two Mentat dice in play. And let's say it's the first turn, for example. And one of the things that is unique about the Harkonnen deck is how the Mentat scales over time. So when you start, you don't have any leaders in planning cards. So your Mentat dice are just to draw two planet cards. Okay, that's different from how the Atreides start, which is draw one, play one, or draw two. And then when Lady Jessica upgrades to Reverend Mother, it's draw two, play one. Okay, so that's obviously a lot more powerful, especially because you start with the leader. But House Harkonnen gains Hawat, Thwyfer, the Swiffer picker-upper, after the very first siege they take. So they take a siege of any value, and they get Thwyfer. Okay, Thwyfer, I don't know. I hate these pronunciations. So what he does is he allows you to draw 3 House Harkonnen planning cards instead of just drawing 2. And there is a unique piece in House Harkonnen where if you draw at least 2 of these 3 Hawat scheming cards, and there's 18 cards in the deck here, so a 1 in 6 chance of drawing 1, each draw, give or take. Then once you draw 2 of them, you can discard them for free to upgrade to this creepy lady, Gaius Helen Mohaim, another Bene Gesserit, and she is similar to Lady Jessica in that you can draw 2 Carino cards and then play 1. And Carino cards, as we know from previous videos, are very combat oriented. So if you think you're going to have a longer game at hand, it might benefit you to first get Thwyfer out before you play your first Mentat dice, so you can draw 3 House Harkonnen cards, in the hopes that you're going to draw a Hawat scheming. And then, if you bring Gaius in the middle of the turn, well, Thwyfer's gone, and unlike Lady Jessica or Paul when they upgrade, their cards stay spent. Gaius is a fresh leader, so there are some turns where you could draw 3 House Harkonnen cards, then draw 2 Carino ally cards, and then play 1 with 2 Mentat dice. It's a pretty cool combo if you can pull that up. Now, if you are going to play an aggressive strategy and just go right out the gate swinging, I oftentimes don't draw any House Harkonnen cards. And the reason is because there's only a couple of cards that are combat oriented, and we'll talk about them here. Most of these are involving recruiting and putting stuff on the board, rather than being overly aggressive. So the style of game that you're playing will change the priority of these cards. Okay, and it is generally always the hope that as the game goes on, you can bring in Gaius and replace Thwyfer. Now, one other thing to point out when talking about these guys, so Gaius has 3 shields for her leadership ability. That's real tough to break. It's not very often that a Fremen player has 3 or 4 Fatakin. Usually it's just 2. So Gaius is good because of that ability. And Thwyver, not a bad leader himself, 2 shields and a sword. So, they're good leaders, but if you're relying on Thwyver to be in combat, and then you bring in Gaius, that will replace Thwyver. Same as Beast and Fade. Although Fade is just an upgraded version of Beast, Gaius is a different version of Thufir. Thufir? Maybe Thufir. All right. One quick note. I never wait for a third card. I always discard when I have 2. I always find that there's reasons to discard cards that don't involve trying to min-max your hand to make sure you get all 3 of these scheming cards out. And generally, I will always play her if I have the ability to. Okay, without further ado, let's talk about the rankings. You will notice right away there are no F-tier cards in House Harkonnen. And as a reminder, S cards are cards I dig for. A cards I'm always glad to draw. And oftentimes I'm hoping that they'll come up. B tier cards are cards that are just generally always fine to draw. C tier cards have their place. I don't love it when they come up, but oftentimes I'll discard them for combat. And D tier cards are, less useful than C tier cards. Again, F tier cards I almost always discard for combat damage and am generally groaning when they come up. So I don't have, unlike other decks, I don't have a ton of F cards in House Harkonnen. So let's start at the bottom and work our way up. So typically the theme of a House Harkonnen deck will involve drawing cards. So let's start with the workhorse of Arrakis. So place a Harvester and a Carryall on the board. That's like a house action dice, kind of. I mean, typically you don't put Carryalls on the board, but okay. And then draw 2 planning cards. So, okay. It's nice for the draw 2 planning cards. If I was planning on putting a Harvester on the map with a house dice, I might instead play a house dice to do this. And place a single Harvester and then replace it with 2 cards. Okay, similar. Sandmasters, 3 Harvesters on the board is more useful to me than a Harvester and a Carryall, but then only replace this card, not draw an extra. This is the closest I got to an F tier card. This is more useful in the expansions, but, D card, maybe F tier. Hard Time and Oppression. Place 1 regular unit in each village and elite in both Carthag and Arakeen. So this is a deploy for 1, 2, 3, 4 regulars and 2 elites. So a standard Ereshkigal deploy, or even maybe a non-Ereshkigal deploy, is 3 regulars, a leader, and then an Ereshkigal is 2 regulars, a Sardaukar, and a leader. So this is giving you a couple more units, but it's limiting where you can place these. And also sometimes that will backfire. If you have a empty village that you're planning on giving up because you don't want the Atreides player to score whatever this nonsense is, then Hard Times and Oppressions can leave you with a single regular in a place, which sometimes is counterproductive. So I don't love this one. Hunter Seeker, this is kind of a spoiler card. Choose a named leader in an area in the same sector as a Harkonnen Legion and place that leader in the regeneration tank. So that's a good, if you're trying to spoil the Zendaya card, Sayadina card from being played, or from Paul going on an acid trip. However, it does require a Harkonnen in that sector. So if they place Jessica out here, you cannot just Hunter Seeker her right away. You need to have a Harkonnen Legion in the sector, which can be tough to do. So hard to pull off. More often you will see this played when you're trying to dismantle an aggressive Atreides. Maybe Paul is rampaging through the cities here and you just hunter seeker him. That's always frustrating for the Atreides player. Okay, D cards, cards I don't love. I wish I would draw something else. Okay, C card. This is probably going to be surprising here. Sorry about that. Beloved Fade Rautha. Fade enters play. Remove Beast and permanently from play, and then play a planning card. Okay, this accelerates. Normally Fade comes on board here at 6. But, Fade is better than Baron in the sense that Fade is a move and attack, and the Baron is a move and then a move. But while that's true, oftentimes you want to have Beast get those first couple sieges for you. So typically what will happen, unless I draw this card first, I will almost never play it for the top action, because typically I'll have Beast on the board rampaging around, and I don't want to remove him. It is not replace Beast with Fade. It is remove Beast and put Fade in the available to deploy and then redeploy Fade. I just don't love it. The bottom is a little bit better. If Fade is in play, bolster his forces by putting 2 elites in the Legion. That's like if Fade's out here and you need 2 more elites, that's okay. I almost made this D tier. I would imagine that's probably the most controversial of these picks. Okay, Carthag, C tier. 3 regulars, a leader. So like a regular deploy plus an elite, but it has to be in Carthag. So the problem with this is if you were to play this right now on your initial deployment, you're full up here. You're not going to be able to put the things everything in here. So this is a good card to keep if you think you're going to be fighting an aggressive Atreides, and you empty Carthag and you kind of bait him in, and then you play Carthag, the former capital. It's 5 hit points, 6 hit points worth of stuff, including a named leader. It's not bad. Similarly, Baron's personal guard, Baron Harkonnen and 2 elites in Carthag or Arrakeen, that's a little more flexible. I like that you can then move any legion, right? I don't love Baron. 2 elites is okay. That's better than, a regular deploy. These cards, a lot of the times you're going to want to use if you've already used Captain Arisham's ability and then you have extra deploy dice to play, and you have a card like this in your hand. That's better than deploying 3 regulars and a Bashar, typically. So think about it like that, maybe. These are good replacement dice for deploys. Okay, B tier. These are cards I'm generally always happy to see. So Spotter Control. Discard 3 worm signs of your choice. That's really powerful because it can, really, if you use the timing on that right, it can really screw up an Atreides' ability to, group up their guys in one spot. Let's say they were trying to, land everybody here, and you just discard 3 worm signs and you discard these 3. I mean, sometimes the timing is kind of tough to pull off, but it's pretty devastating when it works, because you can kind of screw a whole turn depending on what the Atreides player is up to. And then on top of it, you get to replace this with 2 planning cards. Very cool. I like it. I don't always play it right away, but I wait for an Atreides to seem like they're getting a big combo put together, and then I'll play this. Okay, Evidence of Rebellion. 2 elites in any settlement, and then draw 2 planning cards. This is the same settlement. 2 elites in any one settlement. That's pretty okay. I mean, you're not going to overflow like you are with Carthag, and you can put them in any of these settlements. And then the better piece is also drawing 2 planning cards. So you're just burning through this deck, getting more and more options. Okay, Arsent Legion. This one I struggled with a little bit. Place a leader named an elite and a regular in Arsent Village. Then move or attack with the Legion in Arsent. So typically what this looks like, well, let's just use this deploy setup here. So in Elite, a regular, and a named leader. So let's take Beast, an Elite, and a regular in Arsunt. So now I've got a full group of 6, and I can move with an Ornithopter right to here, and we're in attack position on turn 1, ready to go. Second turn Ornithopter straight into there. What's the Atreides player going to do there? I mean, that's a nice army that you can get quickly. And even if it was a different deploy setup, say it was this one, same deal. You've got a nice group of people ready to go. So Arsunt Legion, very flexible. You have to move or attack with the Arsunt Legion, and you cannot play this card if Arsunt has been defeated. So if the Atreides player is already in here, then you're just discarding that card for combat value at that point, which, that's why it's not an A tier card, I think. Okay, forced recruitment. Place 3 elites and a leader in Arrakeen. 3 elites is very good. I mean, that's 6 hit points plus maybe Thwifur or Gaius. This is very much the card that the Atreides player does not want to see if they're about to barrel into Arrakeen. Having to get through 7 hit points in cards, this is the single biggest card with the most hit point value out of any of the decks that can be played. And the fact that you can put a named leader in there with multiple shields, very good. I oftentimes will keep this and kind of bait. You'll see that theme a lot with Harkonnen players, getting the Atreides to try to do something that you want, and then drop something to spoil their day in there. So very good card, almost made that A tier. Except for the fact that it's only Arrakeen, and if the Atreides player is scoring objectives, this one doesn't do you as much good as it would if they were playing aggressive. Okay, Polar Cap Factories. Place 2 regular units, an Elite and a Bashar in the North Pole. So this is kind of like a recruit action. And then discard all worm sign adjacent to the North Pole. I like this less than Spotter Control, and I should probably move it down to a C. But similar, if, let's take this same example of Atreides getting up to no good here. If you played that here, getting rid of these is a pretty tough thing to do. Now, the deploy is nice. It's not terrible and is useful if you ended up, deploying and then moving your units out here to do an attack, let's say. And then they start worm signing up, and then you can say, okay, instead of allowing you to worm sign in, I will then discard that and then now deploy guys here. Even though it's not a fantastic force, it's not an easy free point for people to take. So I do think Polar Cap is useful in most games. All right, A tier cards. Cards I am wanting and hoping that I draw and will always use in a game. So Explosive Artillery. Move any legion, then make a special attack, kind of like a sandworm attack. But you don't need to choose the legion that you moved. So if you move this legion to here, and then these guys are already, near somebody, you can explosive attack with that other legion. So this is a dice that gives you 1 move and then a pre-hit. Now, normally what you're going to do is you're going to move something next to a siege that's well defended, and then you're going to roll dice and you're going to try to reveal this siege. That's the other thing it does, is it will also count as an attack, so they have to reveal, so that can spoil objectives. And then it'll also soften it up. So Explosive Artillery I really like. Especially because in some instances you have to move next to a unit that might then surprise attack you. So this is like a surprise attack hit against a unit that's going to surprise attack you. So very, very useful card here. Okay, Mudir Naya, the Demon Ruler. Place Beast Rabban in an Elite in any legion, and this is a place, so you just take him off the board or take him off the, if he's already on the map, you can take him off the map, and then add an Elite, and then make a surprise attack. This is a excellent card. Also why you don't necessarily want to get rid of Beast right away if this has not been played. However, if the Beast has been removed from play by Fade, instead you're going to place a leader, usually Fade, and 2 elites in any legion. So similar to this one, except this one you get to put Fade in the legion you want and then add 2 leaders in there. But most often I'm using this for Beast and Elite and a surprise attack. That's just too good. All right, finally, my S tier card. Probably controversial here. Harkonnen Patrols. Place 3 regular units in empty desert areas of your choice. Okay, this card has a natural counter, and that's worth pointing out here. So the Fremen have a card called Grandmother of a Storm, which is a card that I always like to see and hold as a Fremen if I can, specifically for Harkonnen patrols. So sometimes House Harkonnen will play this card and then Fremen will follow up with Grandmother of a Storm. But let's talk about what Harkonnen patrols do. Empty desert areas of your choice, 1 per area. So oftentimes if Atreides are out rampaging around, maybe they have worms in a couple of places or whatever, you can drop 3 regulars in awkward places for them to deal with, right? 1, 2, 3. Maybe there's an ornithopter here too. To threaten sieges. Maybe they have to deploy there, but they can't deploy in both. This is usually a good card for getting at least 1 siege. Also, you can double that up with killing some objectives that require them not having Harkonnen leaders in a legion or in a sector. So a lot of the times Atreides players will try to say, okay, I'm going to, I'm going to try to deploy Jessica. Yeah, this is the one. Tahiti Challenge. Spend an action dice to remove a Nabe, basically killing Jamis from a sector not containing a Harkonnen Legion. Also the Sandia card, not containing a Harkonnen Legion, and then Paul's Acid Trip, also not containing a Harkonnen Legion. So a typical way that is played is if there's a carry-all here, let's say, or maybe a carry-all here, and this is kind of starting deployment here. The first turn, they'll deploy Jessica here with the intent of Sayadina-ing her, but you can counter that with Harkonnen patrols. You can still put our 2 guys here next to these 2 empty sieges, but you can also add a guy out here because now he's in the same sector and they can't do that. And that's all of those objectives are 3-point objectives. So they're all very good for ruining with Harkonnen patrols. So S tier card, always happy to have it. Usually get multiple points off it. Very good. So this deck was a little more complicated. I hope you liked this analysis. Please like and subscribe and comment if you have questions or different opinions than mine. Just because you have a different opinion than me, it's okay. We can't all be right. Just kidding. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. See you around. Bye.